Hey everybody, welcome on in to Live at 5. I am Jessica Putnam-Phillips and this is the Clayshare studio that we're in, and tonight we are giving away 6 packs of pyrometric cones. That's right, you might not even know what a pyrometric cone is, but if you make pottery and fire kilns, you need pyrometric cones. So we're going to give away 3 6-packs, so 3 lucky winners of these right here. And a few other goodies are going to go in their little prize pack. And then I'm going to do a little tutorial and teach you how to make your very own cone packs. We'll talk about cones, why you need to use them, what they can do, and basically the different types of cones. So that's what we'll do tonight. And you can ask any questions about Clayshare, about making pots, about cone packs, whatever. Or tell me about your Christmas or your Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or whatever you got going on. That's fine with me too. So we're gonna do that now. And I got a few little news things. You know, I have a new class on Clayshare.com. That is the DIY bead tree class. So if you haven't gone and checked that out and made your own bead tree, you should do that. And while you're there, make yourself a pair of cute earrings. And maybe you don't have pierced ears, make somebody you love a pair of cute earrings, because you can do that too with Clayshare. All right, happy New Year's Eve, everyone, and the eve before. I am super excited for this giveaway tonight, and I have another little announcement. I want to share a couple breathtaking cups with you all. So these pieces right here were my Christmas gift. They are made by Adam Field. They are these unbelievably crafted porcelain cups, and we are so lucky because we have Adam Field doing our first workshop of 2021. That's right, Adam Field is going to be doing a 6-hour workshop, 2 3-hour sessions with us. He's going to do a little wheel throwing, but he's mostly going to talk about carving and show you how to carve and, you know, basically get you going if you want to learn how to carve pottery. There are very few out there who are as masterful as Adam in his carving. These pieces are breathtaking, and they really are some of the finest pottery pieces I own, I have to say. And if you want to kind of step your game up in making, throwing, pottery, carving, you should check that shop out on Clayshare.com. Scroll down to workshops. Remember, premium members get 20% off, so don't forget to use your code, and when you buy a workshop from us, you get it forever. So this workshop will be live on the 16th of January for 3 hours. So we're together for 3 hours live with Adam, and then 3 more hours the next Saturday we are live. After the live broadcasts end, you can access the videos forever. So you get live class with Adam, live workshop with Adam, and you get to watch it over and over and over. Sweet deal. So if you didn't get what you wanted this holiday season, invest in yourself and get yourself the Adam Field workshop. You will not regret it. All right. So I see a bunch of people coming in. Happy New Year's to everybody. Happy New Year's. Happy New Year's. Hi, hi. I know watching Adam carve is mesmerizing. If you've never seen him carve before, you should be following Adam Field Pottery. It's amazing. He's pretty spectacular, and we are thrilled to have Adam join us along with the other workshop instructors we've had on here, Doug Peltzman, Drew Seymour. You can check those out, and we have a couple more workshops coming down the line in 2021. I'm not gonna say who's coming yet. I'm gonna keep it a secret, but I'll share it with you eventually. All right, so right now we're gonna do the giveaway, and pyrometric cones are these little cones, pyrometric for heat, right? And they melt at specific temperatures, and you'll notice they're different colors. So let's just take a look at these guys right here. And so when you're doing a low firing, you'll use the low fire cones. Do you see how they're all brown? They basically stay brown, but when you get up into the higher firing, into the glaze range, they are pastel colors. But once they fire, the higher fire ones turn white. So they're made of a ceramic material that has been formulated to melt at a specific temperature. So pyrometric cones measure heat work. Heat work is temperature and time in a kiln and how it is enacting on your pottery and your glazes. So if you're having difficulty with your firings and you're having uneven firings, you're having inconsistent firings from one firing to the next, you're having your top shelf melt more than the bottom, or your glaze are running too much, or you feel like you're not getting hot enough, if you're not using pyrometric cones, even if your kiln's telling you you're getting to temperature, you might not be. Or it might say you're getting to temperature and you could in fact be going over temperature. So pyrometric cones are a tool we use so we can find out if we are in fact firing our kilns to the correct temperature. So if you don't have them, you should get them. Now, like I was saying, with the lower fire ones, this is cone 04, 05, 06, when they're melted, do you see they don't go a pretty color or all white, they just go a nice iron red color, and that's because the materials they're made out of. So this is more of a earthenware material that the lower fire cones are made from. The higher fire cones are very similar to a porcelainous clay. So that's the different materials that they use in making these. And Orton is the company, basically the go-to company for making pyrometric cones. And when you're doing cone packs, you'll do 3, because you'll have your target cone in the middle. That's the temperature you want to get to. You'll have your guide cone. That's the one in the back. That's the one that's telling you it's getting close. It's getting close. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. And then you have your guard cone, which is the oops, you've gone a little too hot and it melts, and then you know you went over. So you have target, guide, and guard cones. And one thing that I love about Orton is when they sent me the cones to give away to you all, they also sent me a couple of these firing guides. So everybody who wins gets one of these. And they also sent this little chart here. And then it has the temps on the back and what cones they're for. And for some reason, they sent me this little screwdriver. I think it's for adjusting your kiln sitter. So I have got 3 of these. So each one of the winners is going to get the 6-pack of the cones, the little firing guide, this little handy dandy pocket reference, and a screwdriver. So these are like little gifts, right? And I'm not sure if you want to request these, if Orton will send them out. Maybe suppliers and places that sell Orton cones will have these available. I have never seen these before. These are new to me. So I'm really excited to send them out to you all, because I think there's a lot of good information in there. Okay, so you have a digital probe. Should you still use a cone? Yes, ma'am, you should. Yeah, so you have a digital probe, which is a pyrometer, which measures fire meter. So it's a fire meter or a thermometer that goes to higher temperatures. And what it's doing is it's doing the same thing as your kiln readout is doing, but it's the temperature that it's measuring, which is good. We want to know the temperature of the kiln, but we need to know heat work. So when you think about the processes going on in your kiln, you have to think about the fact the kiln is getting hot, but the temperature is not all of the equation. You have time, that's the other part of the equation. So to get your glaze to melt, you have to have a certain amount of temperature, so you hit your temperature, but it also has to go a certain amount of time. So that's 2 parts. And when you put them together, time and temperature, that equals heat work. And heat work is what makes glazes melt. So that's what you're measuring with the pyrometric cones. You need to know your heat work. You need to know where your kiln is getting to, so you know if your glazes are melting correctly. And if you're firing without the pyrometric cones, you're not getting a full readout of what's going on. You're not getting all the information you should be getting. There's no other way to get it other than using a pyrometric cone. I know people who've never used them and they've fired for years and years. If it works for you, okay, don't use it. I've been firing for 20 years. I've always used cones. They're a little extra step, a little extra investment, but I have to tell you, if you ever watch my kiln openings, rarely do I have something not turn out the way I want it to, because I keep track of every single firing. I know what temperature it's getting to. I know what's happening with heat work, and I make the adjustments that need to be made so that if one firing is a little too hot, I adjust my kiln so it cools it down. If one firing is a little too cool, I adjust it up so it fires a little hotter. But I wouldn't know that because the numbers on my computerized kiln will tell me it's the same firing each time, even though in actuality, it's not. So there's a little bit of chemistry going on in clay. Actually, there's a lot. If you didn't know, there's a lot of chemistry happening. So I see there's a bunch of comments about using cones and everything. Do all kilns need cones? You have a Paragon Firefly on the way to you and you're teaching yourself ceramics. It's a lot of information to know. It is, Kimberly, and that's a good question. So yeah, if you're firing, even if you're getting a brand new kiln with a computerized controller, state of the art, top of the line, doesn't matter, your pyrometric cone is really the go-to source for the firing information. You're gonna know if you got to temperature. And I have classes on ClayShare where we talk about using pyrometric cones, talk about cone offsets, making cone packs, all that on there. Plus we talk about it a lot in kiln openings, and we're gonna talk about it tonight. So if you have questions, this is your chance to come and ask me questions. All right, so you've been told you can make cone packs with the junior cones. So I think that you've been given a little bit of misinformation. So cones come in different versions, I guess we could say. They come in the large pyrometric cones. That's what these are in here. They come in the self-supporting. So if we look at, these are mine. These are the giveaway ones. I'm not going to open those up. We're going to open my personal ones that I'm going to show you. Your cones come to you. You break them open. So they come like this. They won't hold themselves up. You need to either make a support for them, which is what I do right here, or you can buy a little ceramic tile they'll sit in, made specifically for them. You can buy them like this that are self-supporting. They will hold themselves up. And that's really it as far as the large cones go. Now, they do make what's called pyro bars, which I have a picture of right here, which is basically a bar. And those are meant to go in a kiln sitter. If you don't have a kiln sitter, you don't need the bars. Don't use them. They also make the junior cones. That's what they have pictured down here. They're little teeny mini cones. Actually, Kev, if you look on my shelf with all my boxes of cones, you'll see a pyro bar and you'll see little pyrometric cones in there. Would you mind grabbing those? So the mini cones actually are meant to go in the kiln sitter as well. So I would never use the junior or mini cones to make a cone pack because they're not going to melt the same way as the large ones. They will not give you really correct readings. So here we have the mini cones. Oh my gosh, they're crazy cute though. I mean, look, if I can even break them. Look how tiny that is compared to that. So let's talk about why the mini wouldn't be as good as the large. Well, we have a larger area for the heat work to be acted upon, right? This, you don't really have much space. You know, this much is going to be embedded in clay. You only have this little nubby top. I don't feel there's enough material there to get a good melt, to get an accurate reading. I feel like you need this because you have all of this material. And if you ask anybody, and even if you ask Orton, they will tell you the large cones are the best ones. The small ones are for using in your kiln sitter. But I will tell you, better than the small ones, for your kiln sitter, you want pyrometric bars because this is an even thickness all the way across. A kiln sitter is a bar that rests upon this, and as your kiln gets hot, this melts into a U, the bar lowers, and it triggers the shutoff mechanism. If you're using the little mini bar, see how it's angled a bit? It can be easy for either the cone to slip out of the holder, or your firing to not quite be even, or you put it in incorrectly and it doesn't fire right, you have a malfunction. So kiln sitter folks, use pyro bars. You will thank me for it, I promise. Mini cones, if you've got them for your kiln sitter, use them for that. But when you need to buy more, buy the pyro bars. You'll be happier. Now, I would not make cone packs with these. Make your cone packs with the larger one. I know the little ones are cheaper, but you're not going to get the right results. All right, so that's a lot of technical info. And I don't want to bore anybody, but the fact is there's a lot of technical stuff that goes on in pottery. And some of you might not know it, so now you know it. And then you can wow everybody with your knowledge. be like, and now I learned this. And plus, it's kind of cool. Can nerd out on it. So do I use cones in both my bisque and glaze firing? No, Kimberly, don't be sorry. You have so many questions. Please ask them. Yes, I do. I do use cones. Here's my bisque firing cone pack. Here it is before. Here it is after. Here's one that's been fired. And the reason I use the cone packs is I want to make sure my bisque firings are even every time as well. And so for me, I need to track it. And again, here's my glaze firing before, glaze firing after. So this was from my last firing that I did. And so I keep these. I'll keep the finished ones for a little while just to track, usually 3 or 4 firings. I will keep them just to make sure every firing is even. So I can notice if there's a trend where it's going hotter or a trend where it's going cooler. And that really helps me keep my kiln working the best for me so I get the best results. So firing to a lower temp than the cone temp can still melt the cone if the temp is held long enough. Chris, exactly. So when you do, say, a cone 5 firing, right? So you do a cone 5 firing, and you hold that for 30 minutes at the end. So you get to that top temp. Cone 5 is 2167 Fahrenheit. So you fire your kiln, it gets to 2167. Instead of it shutting off, you hold it for 15 minutes, hold for 20, hold for 30. What's happening is it's staying at that temperature, but the heat and time is still working on your glazes. So your kiln is actually getting hotter. It's melting. So yes, if you are struggling with pinholing, if you're struggling with uneven glazing, I suggest you add a hold to your firings, because what it will do is it will hold your piece right at that temperature. It allows anything else in there, the gases to come out, those bubbles to make their way out of your glaze, the glaze to melt fully and seal itself over the surface so you don't get those pinholes or those bumps. And that makes a huge difference in your firing and the quality of your pieces. So yeah, exactly right. Chris, caught on. You got it. So you just bought a vent kit. You hope it helps your glaze effect. Tanya, I think it will. What happens is when we fire vents, it circulates the air more. You get a more even firing happening in the kiln. You get a cleaner firing too, because it's pulling everything out that's burning off, and it's pulling it out into the environment. It's okay. It's going out there. And you're not breathing it You're not breathing it, so that's good for you. You're pulling everything out of the kiln, so the atmosphere is cleaner, and you're moving that air around so you get a more even firing. You will notice, if you've never used a kiln vent before, your firings will be different. Use cone packs. You might have to fire a little longer or a little hotter. So just keep that in mind. But I bet you'll find you have more even firings and you'll be happier with your results, definitely. So what about tweaking temperatures with a kiln sitter with the mini cone if moving it slightly to thicker or thinner center? So Martha, when you're firing with a kiln sitter and you're using the little mini cones, what I try to do is I do put the sensor bar in the center still. You do want to do that. You don't want to try to move it to off one side or the other. Just leave it in the middle. And what you'll do is you'll still want to have a cone pack in there so you know what's happening. And if you find that you're needing a hold on those pieces, what I do is when my kiln sitter kiln's about to trigger, I'm in the studio looking at it, and you'll see it start to move. You see the little mechanism start to raise, and it's about to release that lever to trigger the shutoff. What I will do is I'll be there, and as it releases, I'll hold the trigger so it doesn't shut off, and I'll sit there and I'll usually hold it for like 10 minutes if I'm doing a 10-minute hold. Anything longer than that, you could do some heavy-duty tape, but I really don't like people doing that, because if you forget and walk away, you just left your kiln running. So you can do holds with kiln sitters, and I wouldn't try to go for the thinner or thicker side of that mini little cone. You can use them and they will work. If you find that the cone you're using, you're just not getting hot enough, then move up to the next cone hotter. And if you're going to buy more cones, get the pyro bars. Just be easier and you'll get better results. And okay, so I see Vicky has a question and Kevin's going to answer it. Is O5 and cone 5 different temperatures? They're very, very different temperatures, in fact. So if we look at the cone firing scale, You know, it starts all the way down at like O22, I think, but the O is like a negative. So if we have a firing where you have O5, that's like -5. And then you'd have O4, -4, O3, O2, O1, and then it goes to 1. And then 2, 3, 4, 5. So think of the number line from back in grade school, everybody, right? And think of, there's no 0, unfortunately, in firing. It's either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Some people fired a cone 12. And then you have negative, which is 01, 02, 03, 04, 05, 06, 07, 08, 09, 010, 011, 012, 013, 014, 015, 016, 017, 018, 019, 020, 021, 022. I don't know anybody that goes, well, you could go to 023, 024. I don't know anybody that goes cooler than that. But the O is like negative, so it is colder. It's much cooler than cone 5. So it's a number scale. So I don't know which one of you was saying it, you know, Vicky, whether it was you or your husband thought they were different or the same, but they are very different. And it's a little confusing when you're starting out, because if you've never used them, you're like, oh, 5, 5. Aren't they the same? They're not the same. The O is the negative. All right, so do you add a hole to the kiln that has an older kiln sitter? So Lynn, I answered that. I think your question's just a little older. Molly's a firm believer in cone packs. Anybody who's used them for any length of time is. I know it's a little extra expense when we're firing and we're, you know, but isn't it better to have a kiln full of pots that turn out the way you want them instead of it not turning out the way you want them? So it's worth the little bit of an investment. Plus 3 people tonight are going to get the 6-pack for free. And this contest was open to anybody anywhere in the world because I have them here in my studio. I will be packing and shipping them to the winners. And when I do that, you know, that means the contests are open internationally. So that's what we have here. So I think we're going to have to go ahead and give them away. So Catherine has a question about breaking the cones apart. It is difficult. I often have difficult time breaking them apart too. You know, we make it, I'll break them apart, we'll talk a little bit about it then. I don't have any really fancy secret tricks. I'll show you how I break them apart, but sometimes if I struggle, I'll get somebody else in here to break them for me, and then I don't have to do it. So that makes it a little easier. And so Renee had a lot of pinholes in your first glaze fire, the only one that you did, and you have a kiln sitter. So should you try to do a hold next time? Yes, I think so, Renee. I would start with a 10-minute hold. I would. And do exactly what I said. You know, for me, I would be in the kiln. I would be in the kiln room with the kiln when it finished. So I was there as it tried to shut itself off, and I would just grab it so it didn't trigger the off. And I would sit there and hold it for 10 minutes. You know, you sit there with your arm on your like knee, you're sitting down next to it and you're holding it and you're counting the minutes. But you could tape it for 10 minutes if you wanted to on your kiln sitter, tape it up so it doesn't fall down, and just then release it when it's done. But yeah, you can totally do that. Unless they've come out with another way to do a hold on a kiln sitter. My kiln with a kiln sitter is like 48 years old. It's very old. Alrighty, so let's give these guys away and we'll talk about your questions. I see there's some with storing cones. I just keep them on a shelf. So I have got 3 winners. Now there was a lot of discussion when these came to the studio, and we put it out there for everybody because they are the cones to make cone packs for a bisque fire and the cones to make the cone packs for a glaze fire. We were trying to decide if we should divide them up and do like 3 bisque fire kits, 3 glaze fire kits, but not everybody glaze fires to these temperatures, but most everybody does bisque fire to these temperatures. So we went ahead and put them together into 3 prizes instead of 6 broken up prizes. And if you win tonight and you don't use the cones that are the temperature that you've won, give them to somebody who does. Pass them along. You don't have to use them. Share the wealth. Give it to someone else. All right, here we go. First winner, I'm going to start with one of the Orton cone pack, and a huge thank you to Orton. Orton is not on Instagram. I try to tag them. They are not very active on social media. So you can't buy your cones directly from Orton. You get them from your ceramic supplier. I get mine from Clayscapes Pottery, and they have all the cones you need. And they do have, I believe, Explore 10 discount code you can use to save off of cones. So you have to check that out if you go to claysharepottery.com. and you can get yourself some cones, and they do ship. But if you have a local clay supplier, I am sure they carry cones, so you can get them. And we'll talk about what you need for cones. We'll get there. Don't worry. It's gonna happen. And everybody has questions. Hold on a second. Let me do the giveaway, and then I'll get to your questions. All right, the first winner of the Orton Cones 6-pack, I'm giving away 6-packs of stuff. Everything should be in 6-packs, is Pauline Curtis. Pauline, my dear, you have won yourself a 6-pack of pyrometric cones. Now these cost about $11.50 a box. So 6 boxes of these is like $70. That's a good prize. So I'll be sending this out to Pauline. You will also be getting the cones and firing guide from Orton, this little screwdriver, which is very handy to have in the studio, and this little wallet chart for pyrometric cones, and has a pyrometric cone chart on the back. So that's a handy little gift prize. And everybody who wins tonight is getting that little extra goodie thing. So congratulations. All right, and I will get to the questions. So if you have a question, just hold and I'll get to you. All right, next winner of the 6-pack of pyrometric cones is, no drum roll tonight? No drum roll. Ooh, sound effects guy. Ready? The second winner is David Costa. David Costa, congratulations, sir. You have won yourself a 6-pack of Orton Pyrometric Cones. Woohoo! And all the little extra goodies too. You get those as well. Okay, so Pauline and David, you know, we don't usually have a lot of guys that sign up for our emails, so we don't have a lot of guys that win. So congratulations, David. Last winner for tonight, and we will have a giveaway in January. I have a thing in mind. So usually we have a sponsor that sponsors the giveaway, and I do have somebody who's willing to do it. But as many of you know, I am moving, and that means I'll be packing the studio up and moving that too. I was kind of thinking of maybe doing a studio moving giveaway, and all the extra tools or glazes or stuff I got floating around the studio that I don't need or want to move, I might give those away to you in January instead of doing a sponsored giveaway. What do y'all think? All right, we'll talk about that. Let's do the last winner for tonight. Just for tonight though, there'll be more winners, always is. And remember, just go to clayshare.com to sign up for our emails to be eligible to win. Premium members, you're automatically entered. You don't have to do anything. Okay, third winner is Denise Crawford. Denise, congratulations. You've won yourself this lovely 6-pack of pyrometric cones, and the cones and firing guide, the little wallet guide, and the screwdriver. Congrats, 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 everybody. I will be packing and shipping these up tomorrow, or as soon as I have their information. Those who won, you will get an email from us, and we will get your mailing address where you want these sent to, and we will send them to you. Hopefully it won't take weeks and weeks to get them. I know the mail has been crazy, crazy slow. So, I know, I wish I had more to give away, but just 3 tonight. But we'll do more next month, I promise. Okay.
I know, I can feel the desire
I
to
want
give
looking.
stuff away.
I'm like, I've got some half-used boxes of my own cones that I use in the studio, but I kind of need them, so these are not. So I can't give those away. But I'm like, what else could I do? But for this, we're just gonna calm down, step back, and we'll do some awesome stuff next month. I know, everybody who's been waiting to buy, you can go to Clayscapes Pottery to Drew there and hook yourself up and order pyrometric cones. They also do, Clayscapes is doing packs where you can just get individual, like just the 3 you need. So you don't need to buy a whole box. You could just get a few at a time. So if you don't want to do the investment of a whole box of 50 cones, you can just buy a few from Drew. So that's one thing they started doing, is making those mini cone pack kits, I guess. So, all right. All the people who've been asking me questions, if I missed your question, we'll try to scroll back through. If not, ask me again. Ask me again. I don't mind. Clara says she'd be happy to take any extra diamond core tools I can't move with me. They're awfully hard to move, aren't they? Well, we will have to see what I have when I'm going to be sorting through everything, and if I have duplicates or extras of anything, I'm going to give it to you guys. I like to share the wealth. I like to share with you all. You know it. So we've done this before where I've given away like extra glazes that I have or tool samples. I have given away a bunch of diamond core tools in the past. So whatever I have, if it's extra, you're going to get it. Why not? Why should I keep it all? I want to give it to you guys. Okay, so let's talk about cones. So do I have a preference for self-supporting or the standard?
Coming back to you for it.
Okay, thank you. All right, there is a class already, Lucy, that is asking. I see that it has been shared on making your own cones. So I'm going to tell you the difference between the self-supporting and the standard. Here's the standard. They don't hold themselves up. You must make a support, or they make these things called cone plaques, which is like a little tile that you sit them in. Or you buy the self-supporting that have a base built onto it and that holds itself up. And I'm going to tell you why I buy these and make my own cone packs is for the same amount of money that you would spend to get 50 of the ones that you have to make the support for the standards. You get 25 self-supporting. I am frugal. I would rather get twice as many cones for the same amount of money. That's just how I am. And it does not bother me to make these all day long to get twice as many. So that means with 50 of them, I get 25 firings, because I could put 2 in each firing. If I buy the 25 self-supporting, that's like 12 and a half firings. Like 12, and then I gotta buy another bunch, and that gets carried over. So I do prefer these. And for me, it's not a big deal to make my own cone packs. All right, I think for everybody except the folks on Instagram, which I'm sorry, we're going to switch to the overhead camera now because we're going to start the tutorial portion of tonight's broadcast. It's now time for the tutorial portion.
Get your focus.
Get my focus on.
Focus.
Let's get my focus on. Okay, here's my cones right here. All right, so you fired your new Scott digital controller, manually entered my schedule for cone 5, 2167 with a 10-minute hold. It shut off, but only reached 2140. The cone pack showed cone 4 laid flat, cone 5 bent over, the cone 6 just moved. So, Sharon, interestingly enough, that's where your pyrometer that's reading it out is not giving you the heat work. You got to cone 5. You actually got to cone 5. Are you happy with the glaze results? Did it turn out the way you want? Because I'm going to tell you the end all be all is your cones readout. This is more important than what the pyrometer says. How this turned out is more important. This right here. If it says it only got to 2140, but this melted, you got to cone 5. That's why they can't be relied upon, right? So if you got to 2167, it might have overfired and actually been cone 6, not cone 5. Yeah, there's all kinds of like leeway with calibration with pyrometers. That's why we use this. So I'm interested to see if she says that she's happy with her result. Okay, so let's talk about the cone packs. What temperature are you firing to? Well, I'm firing to cone 5. So if I'm going to fire to cone 5 is my target cone. That's cone 5. Then I need my guide cone. That would be 1 cone lower, cone 4. And then my guard cone, which is 1 cone hotter, right? So we have our 3 cones that make up our cone packs for our glaze firing. Let's do the same thing for bisque firing. I bisque fire to cone 05. Some people bisque fire to cone 04. That's up to you. Now remember, when we are doing the O's, it's negative. So that means here's my 05, negative 5, right? So I need 1 cone cooler, that is 06, and I need 1 cone hotter, that is 04. So this is my set of cones for making my bisque fire packs, and this is my glaze fire packs. So it's pretty easy to figure out. You just go 1 cooler, 1 hotter than where you ideally want to be. If you want to be at cone 6, you want a cone 5, cone 6, cone 7. So I hope that's clear. I hope y'all got that right. Yes. So witness cones are especially great if you have an error code or a power outage. Exactly, Jennifer. That is such a good thing to put out there because you might think your kiln didn't get the temperature, but it might have. Or you might think it did, but it didn't. So this will really tell you, because if you have an error code, it's not going to give you a reading because it's having an error. It's having some problems. Yeah, the digital readout is nice. Yeah, I agree with you, Dwayne, but it's just a snapshot. It's not the overall effect, and that's why we talk about heat work, right? So here we have our cones, and let me grab a workboard because I'm going to actually make some cone packs tonight. I will be doing a glaze firing soon. It is the holiday week, so you know this week I'm sort of taking some downtime, although I'm still working half days. I won't be working tomorrow or Friday, so there will not be a glaze kiln this weekend. But I think it will be next Sunday. What is next Sunday? Is that the 8th of January? I'll have to look at it, but mark your calendars. Next Sunday, not this coming one, not the 3rd. That'll be the 10th then, wouldn't it? 7 days? The 10th is going to be the glaze kiln opening. Okay, so here we have our cones. And we're going to start, let's start with 4. So why do I bisque to 05, not 06? Jolene asked. So I bisque to 05 because 04 is a little hotter and it sometimes closes cone 5 clays up. I don't go to cone 06 because that's not quite enough and you can get more pinholing. By going to 05, it's burning off more of the organic matter in the clay, so you get less off-gassing during your glaze firing, less potential pinholes. So for me, with the firing to cone 5 glaze, an 05 bisque is perfect. Okay, so here's cone the 4s, right? And this is how I break them. I hold them each by the fatter part and I just pull down. See how they snapped apart? So that's the 4s. So let's get a couple out. So this is how I make them. So when we think about melting, what's going to melt first? The cone 4 is going to melt. So let's look at our cone pack. The cone 4 is the coolest temperature. That will melt first, so that has to be at the back. The cone 5 is our middle, that's our target cone, and then cone 6 is the hotter, so we put that at the front. So here's our 4, and now we'll move on to the 5s. It does also say on the side what cone it is. It's teeny though, so sometimes you need like a magnifying glass or magnifying glasses in order to go ahead and read that. Now, my cone 5 cones were a little more difficult to break than my cone 4 for whatever reason. And I did see someone ask how long can they store. I go through my cones fairly fast, but I've stored them for years and years and they've been fine. As long as they don't crumble and fall apart when you break them, they're still usable. So as long as they don't get wet, they should be fine. So these ones break pretty easy too, but over a period of time of breaking, this rough edge can be a little hard on your hands. So if you have somebody around that is willing to do a little manual labor for you, maybe put them to work breaking apart your cones. That would be, you know, a good little job for any little hands around you that wants to, you know, maybe earn a little extra allowance or just get in your good book. All right, so now we're going to make our supports, and I have a bag of clay here. And this is really important for y'all. If you're going to make your own cone packs, the clay you use must at least go to the temperature you want to fire to. So if I was going to make a cone pack for, say, these going to cone 5, my clay has to at least go to cone 5. If I used a low fire clay, like an earthenware clay, my support itself would melt. So you need to make sure whatever clay you are going to use for these fires to the temperature you're going to, or hotter. It can fire as hot. It could be a cone 10 clay. That's fine, as long as it won't melt on you. That's the big thing that you want to remember. So where on the shelves do I put my cone packs? That's a good question. I will put mine on the bottom shelf, and I put one on the top shelf. Some people put one in the middle. I don't do that. I figure if the bottom and the top are close enough, I don't worry about the middle. If I'm having any real issues, I would put one in the middle, but I only do top and bottom, and I just put it on the edge, usually on the bottom, because I'll have it full. And you want to make sure that when your cone pack melts, you don't put it too close to the side. This one, you see this funny cone pack? Do you see how this is melted in this weird way? I put this in my little baby kiln, my doll kiln, and I must have scooted it too close to the element holder, and it melted onto the side of the kiln. You don't want to do that, because what happens there is it can damage your kiln. If they melt onto your elements, it can damage kilns. So you want to have it firing so that it's not going to touch anything as it melts, so don't have it too close to pots. And sometimes I'll actually use a little, you want to grab me a little broken piece of kiln shelf? It's over there with the cones as well. I will save my kiln shelves when they break. It happens. Kiln shelves break. I promise you they will. It's just part of making stuff, that you break things. So what I sometimes will do, this one's a little big, but I will use one of these and set it on this, so that way if it overfires and it melts into a puddle, it's protected. Now, I'm not really having that issue, but if it's the first time you're using cone packs, you might want to do this. I'll also show you how to make a cone pack with a well in the back to catch it, which again, I don't do normally because I don't usually have that issue, but it happens a lot when you're starting out. So I used to do it. So will they stick to the kiln shelf if they bend over? So this is why we kiln wash. Do you see this white surface? This is the shelf normally. Here's kiln wash. The kiln wash will allow the cones to release. Unless you have a very bad overfiring, you shouldn't have a problem with them coming off. They should come right off the shelf. It shouldn't be a problem. All right, so we're going to grab some clay. This is B-Mix 5, and that's what I'm going to use for making these. Just going to roll it out into a coil. And you don't have to get fancy with the coil. You're not being graded on this at all. This is just going to make some cone packs. All right, so we have our cone pack. We're going to start with the front with the hottest temperature. That's going to be the first one you put in. So we'll take our cone 6. There's our cone 6. So when you look at these, you'll notice that there's a slant. And if you sit it down, I don't know if you can see, if you sit it down on a shelf or something, here, I'll grab this. Sit on a shelf, there's a natural angle. You want to maintain that angle even when you make your cone pack. So what I do is I sit it next to me on the board. I see that angle. I put it up here, press it in, pinch, do a little pinch. Just do this, pinch. And again, I have a class on making these, so if you're just joining in and this is over your head, go check out the class. It's easy there. It's easy here too, but you know. So our next one is our cone 5. Now you want to make sure that your cone numbers are all facing to the right. That's how these should be. You want the flat to the back. When we look at them, see? You have a flat side and then the point that's coming to the front. This is how we do it. Sit it to the side, get your angle, put it in. And I have a gap of about maybe 1/4 of an inch between them. You need a little space, but not a ton. Arlene, you have plenty of broken shelves. It happens to me a lot too. I tend to kick my shelves over on accident. I don't mean to do it, but it happens. All right, so let's do our next one. This is our last one, so we're gonna push it in. And I see Martha's got a question. As long as they don't get wet, but you live in a very humid climate, should you bring your cones inside where it's air conditioned and the air is drier? So Martha, I live in Vermont, which is a temperate rainforest. We are very, very humid here. You might be in a tropical climate, so you might have a little more humidity. I don't bring mine into a climate controlled environment, and they're okay. But if you find they are getting crumbly on you, then yes, I would. All right, so I would normally stop and pinch this off right here. That would be the end, but we want to make a little well in the back. So we're just going to use the clay and we're just going to make a little back, like a boat, right? And so this here, and it's kind of, there we go. So you can see it from the side. It's my cone pack. We have this. This is very cautious. We don't need to do this. The next one I won't do this. But if you're just starting out and this is the first cone pack and you're worried it's going to melt and make a big puddle, you can make this little well. You don't have to make it exactly like this, but you get the idea, right? So let's sit that there. I don't put pinholes in this. We just let it air dry. They must dry all the way before you fire them in a kiln. If not, the clay will explode and stick to your pieces. I do not recommend bisque firing these. If you're going to use them for glaze firing, don't bisque them. They go in raw. You just make them, air dry them, and then put them in the kiln. So if you're doing a glaze fire tomorrow and you're making these tonight, you cannot use these. You cannot. They must dry. Unless you live in a climate that's really, really hot, and you can put them outside in the sun and then maybe put them in an oven or something to dry them the rest of the way. But I would not use these. I like to make these about a week before. I always have cone packs made so that I'm never out of them. Donna says she's had self-supporting cones stick to her shelf. They've melted and you can't get them off. Have you tried? You have to grind it off. So you can either use a rub brick or a grinder. And I do have a class on grinding shelves. I got a class on everything out there, you know. A lot of things happen in pottery and we all get things sticking. So you can grind them off, but that's really the only option now. So 6, 5, 4. This is the back. And this is normally how I end them. Pinch. And then I just soften that a little bit. And that's my normal cone pack. So you can see all the numbers are in a row. They're angled the same angle, right? And the angle matches if it was sitting on the shelf. So you can see that right there. Keep going with them.
This one's getting asked a lot.
Yeah, if the tip of the cone breaks, is it garbage? It depends how much breaks. If just the tip breaks, no. Let's look at it. So let's look at one that's done because it gives you a better idea. Some of it is in the clay down here, right? So you got that. And then you come up to here. If I would say less than a quarter or a quarter breaks, you'd be all right. I would still use it. I've done it. It's fine. I mean, I bet there's purists out there who will argue, no, you must throw it away. But if it's just the tip, I think you're fine. Because they are kind of expensive. And the tip, if it's just a teeny bit, it's really not going to make that big of a deal. So you can use them. Yeah. So I see Tracy pokes a ton of holes in them to help them dry faster. It can help. It can help. Yep, it will speed it up. For me, I make these far enough in advance that I don't do the holes, but say we needed to do some holes, let's do holes in this one. All right, so there's our 6, there's our 5, and next will be our 4. And then I'll quickly make one more, and then we'll switch and do the bisque ones. We'll make a couple bisque ones because I want to show them too. If you've made a bunch of cone packs and you realize you have them in the wrong order, you can just take the cones out carefully and remake them. It happens. I've done it on accident, just on autopilot, making cones. You're not paying attention. See, I roll my coil mostly out in my hand, and then I set it down. So sometimes you're not really paying attention, or you have your order, like me, set on your board, and you get it out of order. Just pull them right out and make them again. Once I did a cone pack wrong because I wasn't paying attention, and I did a photo of it and I posted it, and I was like, learn how to make cone packs. And someone's like, your cone packs are wrong. And I was like, yep, you're right. I put them in wrong order, thanks. We are human. It happens. All right, so these are our glaze fire ones. Let's grab our bisque temps, and I'll show you these because they're a little different. Do I have a kiln god class? I don't, because kiln gods are so personal. I feel like if my kiln god would not be the same kiln god you might want. You know, so I don't have one. No. I thought about doing one, but yeah. I feel like that is so a kiln god, if you don't know, is kind of like a totem that people will make. It's something that has meaning to them. That's what, a totem is. And it's something that, they make to help them have good firings, right? So that they, hopefully every time they fire their kiln, they get good results. And it's a fun little thing to make, and it can be anything. And some people will take used cone packs and, stick them in his teeth. Some people will just do a abstract sculpture. It can be anything you want. So I find look how hard this is. The bisque fire ones are a little more difficult than the glaze fire ones to break apart. So you've made your cone packs a day or even night before firing. You put a lot of holes in the wet clay so it dries faster and evenly, and so far you haven't had any problems. That, yeah, you could be okay with that. I had a whole kiln when I was first starting, made a cone pack the day before, put it in, it blew up and it ruined not just my work but everybody else's because it wasn't just mine. So you just have to make sure you do a preheat for a long enough period of time so that you get all the physical and chemical water out, and also so that you do a slow firing so it doesn't have steam escaping, which causes those explosions, and that can cause problems. I have seen so many people post bad things with their cone packs. Okay, so for this, I've got to read the numbers to make sure, but I think I got them right. So we want to start with our lowest one, right? And so when we're doing negative, think of our timeline. So the 06, the 05, and the 04. The 04 is the hottest. That's this one I have here. So we'll put that one in. And then here's our 05 right there. And our 06. Just like that. Are you all seeing that okay? You didn't tell me that we weren't on. Okay. Make sure I stay on screen. So there is the bisque fire, and the bisque ones don't usually melt all over the shells. It can happen, but it doesn't usually, so far. You've used them the next day, but you bake them in your oven first. I think as long as you make sure they're dry enough, you'll be all right. Oh, Pat has kiln fairies. I love kiln fairies. I mean, we could do a class on making a little sculptural object that you can use as a kiln god or goddess, your choice. But, yeah, you don't have to. They're fun. So this one will be our 04. This one, our 05. And then next is the 06. So what happens to the clay when you bisque fire to cone 03? So Catherine, if it is a cone 5 clay, what can happen is the clay can start to vitrify. It can start to close up. And so it won't be as porous as it would be normally. And then when you go ahead and apply your glaze, it won't be as absorbent. So you'll have a difficult time for the glaze to soak into the clay. And you might not get as even of a glaze application. It might be a little thin looking because the clay can't actually pull that glaze in. So that's what can happen. Will it hurt your piece? No, not really. It just might affect how the glaze applies. That's all. So here we have we can roll back to the front. So here we have our 2 sets of cone packs. We'll turn them sideways so you all can see them. We have our bisque fire, and if you hold them up and you look at them and you're noticing that, oh, wait a minute, that's not angled quite enough, okay, just adjust it. Or it's angled too much, just adjust it. So I always make them, and then I like to do a quick check. You want that angle to be right, because that can affect how it melts. I've seen people put them straight up and down. You're not going to get a correct reading. They must be at that angle. That's why when they're made, let me grab one. I don't have any unbroken out here. Here, let me grab one. That's why when they make them at the factory and you get them, they have that angle. Right there. That's right there. So there you have it.
So gravity can pull it over.
That's right, gravity. We didn't really talk about gravity working on your glaze. It does, but it only can work if you have heat work, which is what? Time plus temperature. That's going to be on your Queen's class. Study. You'll be good to go. All right, so what is a kiln god? I did just answer that. I hope she just asked that after I answered it.
It was... Well,
and you do a slower start to your firing too, yeah. And so I think that's why you're not having any problems with them blowing up. Yeah, and I just like to encourage everybody, if you know you're doing a firing next week, make them now instead of doing it last minute. And then you end up possibly risking them exploding in the kiln. All right, there are little trays. You can set them in, yes. And those trays are reusable, Kristen asks. Yes, they are. So they're often called cone plaques, P-L-A-Q-U-E, or cone tiles, depending on where you're buying them. And they just are a little piece of ceramic material that has a place that is triangle shaped for each one of them to sit in. And my friend who owns the Saratoga Clay Art Center, Jill Kovacic, she uses the cone plaques for these to fit in. I know because I did my residency there and we used them. So you didn't make your own cone packs, you just use those little tile things. So they are really handy if you do a lot of firings and you don't want to have to make a bunch of these, because you buy those plaques, you just have to have enough of them for your kilns. She has, I think, 4 electric kilns, so she just has to make sure she has 8 of them available. So you just buy what you need. But yeah, you could buy those and then you don't have to make these at all. And then you don't have to worry about the drying, right? That totally changes the drying issue. Takes it out of the equation. So if the clay is low fire and you bisque to 03, I would not bisque to 03 if it's low fire, Catherine. I would, with low fire clay, I bisque to 05 with low fire. And then actually with low fire you glaze to 04. Some people will go bisque to 04, glaze to 05. I'll tell you a secret. When I do terracotta, I will bisque fire. This is gonna mess everybody up. You all are gonna, hold on. When I use terracotta clay, I bisque fire to 05 and I glaze fire to, are you ready? Cone 1. Yes, I glaze fire to cone 1 with my terracotta because it vitrifies it. And that fixes any issues people have with terracotta not being food safe. I knew that would mess everybody up and I didn't want to say it because that's a whole separate thing. But we're talking about cone 5, cone 6 clays tonight. And low fire too. Yes, yes, yes. All right. So why don't I choose to use the plaques? I know you think I would. I think for me, I think it's hanging on to my past and how I learned. You know, this is just something I actually don't mind making cone packs. I like seeing them sitting in rows on my shelf. The top shelf of where I keep my cone packs is rows of them. And I just like making them. I like the process. It's part of that tactile quality of ceramics and I really enjoy it. So for me, will I ever stop making cone packs? Maybe someday, but not yet.
I got one that,
You got another good question?
I got one that's been asked of.
Are 20-year-old cones too old to use, Lisa? Maybe not. What I would do is open up the box, break them apart. If they don't crumble on the breaking, they're probably fine. If when you break them, they crumble, they might not be fine. So that would be my test for it. If they're all separate and not together, sacrifice one and break it and see what happens. If it breaks nicely, then you're fine. If it crumbles, then it's probably past its date. Yeah, that's what I would do. Kiln wash your plaques. Yes. Brenda, yes ma'am. Should kiln wash them? Yes, definitely. So making cone packs gives you a feeling of accomplishment on those days where everything else goes wrong. You're not wrong there. Marceline is completely right. There are days where maybe all I can do is make cone packs, right? We all have those days. So there we have it. We gave away the cones. Congratulations to our 3 winners. You will get an email from us. We made the cone packs. Again, go to clayshare.com. 1, sign up for our emails, because you should. That's how you get entered in our giveaways. And if you didn't get what you want for the holidays and you want to give yourself a gift, actually, even if you got everything you wanted for the holidays, you should still give yourself a gift. Invest in yourself. Invest in your pottery journey. Sign up for Adam Field's workshop. And if you're still wondering, if you're like, well, I don't know if it's for me, we can check out the description we have about what's going on with the workshop. But go follow Adam Field. I bet if you see his pots and you see how he makes them, you're going to sign up. You're going to love it. Love it, love it, love it. He's amazing. I am looking forward to it. Again, that's January 16th and 23rd, 3 hours each day. And when you sign up for the workshop, you get the replays forever. And honestly, it might be your only chance to have a workshop with Adam Field in 2021. I don't know. He might do others, but he's definitely happening in January for us. So go ahead and check that out. All right, everybody, thank you for joining me. we are going to go to our private broadcast for premium members where we are going to be talking about the brand new 2021 ClayShare 12-month challenge only for my premium members. That's it. Premium members are the only ones who can get in on this. If you're not a premium member yet, go to clayshare.com and become one. And then you can join us for the 12-month challenge. All right, everybody, Happy New Year. Take care, and I will see you next week.